And I think now we have Giulia back, Giulia Peretti, with the presentation on restorative building and operation. Giulia, are you online?
Yes, I'm online.
Hello, Giulia. So feel free to share your screen. The mics are on. We can hear you perfectly. And far away.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can also hear me, and I'm sharing my screen. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry I've done a little bit of a chaos with the time zone. So I'm here, and I'm very happy to present the results of the working group 3. My name is Giulia Peretti. I work in Germany for the engineering company Werner Sobeck, and especially in the department of sustainable building design. I was the leader of the working group 3, and in my presentation I will go through the main outcomes and questions we deal with into our working group. So the question at the beginning, after the finish of the working packages 1 and 2, was how it's possible to build all these regenerative buildings, which are at least one concept. So how can this project be built and operated in a regenerative way, and how it's possible to integrate all those principles in the construction and operation process. And the main question was indeed how to shift from the business as usual into a regenerative construction process. And to answer to these questions, we focused on a life cycle approach, investigating into details 4 main phases of the construction process, namely the procurement and everything considering what follows the stage and precedes the construction phase, including bidding, tendering, procurement. Then we focused on the construction, also from the preparation of the site up to the management of the construction process, including material and technologies uses for the construction process. Then we moved into detail into the operation phase, starting from the commissioning and going through the operation and maintenance of the building. And finally, we analyzed everything it's happening after the building ends its preliminary life. And we call it future life. And this stage includes refurbishment, retrofitting, reuse, adaptation, and in the worst case, which is not so part of our regenerative approach, demolition and dismantling. So these have been the 4 main areas we investigated. And regarding to these 4 areas and the implementation of regenerative construction operation, we focused on the 3 major challenges and issues for the construction and real estate industry. And this regards the construction strategies, the facility management, and the potential in historic and existing building. Now I will go briefly into detail on these 3 questions. And in the second part of the presentation, I will present you how in our group the answer to these 3 main points have been given. So the first points regard the shift from degenerative construction strategies to positive net environmental impact. So we all know that currently the construction sector is one of the industries impacting, having the greatest negative environmental impact, and therefore it increased pollution and cause natural disasters, and is also one of the causes of the climate change. So using regenerative materials and regenerative technologies and encouraging all the stakeholders into this direction So moving from the degenerative or less bad strategies to other strategies that could provide a positive net environmental impact was one of the main goals we noted in the first stages of our construction process. Then the second point regards the facility management and how it's possible to shift from classical facility management into one which has a more regenerative approach, and it includes also urban facilities and not only so at the building itself. So the importance of the usage phase along the life cycle of the built environment is very important, and solution in sustainable and regenerative management of properties and neighborhood are needed. We investigated some points regarding this one, which includes on one side, so including the users of the buildings into the evaluation of the operation of the building itself, and this both for increasing the energetic performance of the building, but also the health and the comfort for the user themselves. And the second step was to think about the neighborhood level, or to an entire city level out of the classical one building management. And this kind of urban facility management will require a paradigm shift in real estate management. So it was part of our study to investigate new processes and contractual models in letting and change this dimension of the facility management. The third point regards the shifting from regenerative drivers only in new building, or the extension of the regenerative drivers are in new buildings toward regenerative drivers of historic building and existing building stock. And that's because historic buildings can become a really interesting driver for regenerative sustainability. And heritage adaptation is an effective strategy to trigger climate change action and community resilience, and meeting the Agenda 2030 goals. So we noted that built environment profession are needed to reflect on the potential impact on heritage building, which may already be subject to strong pressure and risk related to decay, lack of maintenance, redundancy, and other vulnerabilities. So this was the three main steps which are described also in the WSG3 booklet, and we try to train our group and during the training school, and this was also the focus of the establishment of our Restore network. Now, going a bit into detail on how we investigated and what we are our strategies or idea to deal with the these three questions, I will refer to the outcomes of our publication. So regarding the shift from degenerative construction strategies to positive net environmental impact, we identified three main aspects, which are the use of regenerative materials and the regenerative technologies, and this will help to move towards a positive and regenerative environmental construction sector. So going into our publication, we investigated this from the point of view of the procurement and Hello? Okay.
Κλείστο αυτό για να μπορώ να τον βάλω μέσα.
Sorry, there is someone with a micro on.
Ναι, boobs.
Okay. So part of our work was to investigate how the regenerative construction and operation of building can or should be integrated in a procurement. And because the regenerative procurement, as we call it, is the transition between the regenerative design vision and the realization of that vision. And to do this, we developed a tool with which are pre-qualification questionnaire. And this tool, the goal of this tool is to raise awareness and force changing throughout the supply chain. And this was a tool in order to, during the tender process, to select companies and suppliers which are involved in a regenerative construction process. The second stage after the procurement to move from a degenerative construction strategies to a positive environmental impact is during the construction itself. And the three main aspects we investigated regards the material, the technologies, and the tools used in the construction process. And in detail, the outcomes of our studies are based on a survey which we made during our working group phases. And through these surveys, we could identify the barriers, the challenges, and the opportunity for implementing, for example, emerging materials and technologies in the construction sector. And another main point was that to promote this change in the construction process, the knowledge must be enlarged. And this will be the starting point for a shift, a paradigm shift in the construction process. The next big point was the change and the step toward regenerative facility management. And the three steps identified are the integration of facility management during planning and construction. The second one during the operation is the adjustment of settings of the building services to save energy and, as mentioned before, also to increase satisfaction and health. And the third one is the move from an individual building to a neighborhood level. In our working group, our contribution was to investigate about these three aspects from a regenerative point of view, and how the facility management can preserve and regenerate the built environment. So the approach was to set new targets for the facility management. So from a regenerative point of view, so shifting from the current focus, for example, regarding the linear economy, into a regenerative facility management which takes into consideration the aspect mentioned before, for example, the active interaction of the users and a circular economy approach. And then the last point we investigated was the integration of historical and existing building stock as a driver for a future life of the building. So the two steps we investigated in two details were the adaptation and to avoid potential negative impact on heritage or existing buildings. And the second one was the concept of waste and of existing building, and rethink them in terms of farm or urban mines for new buildings. And especially the second point of the concept of waste and how to revisit the paradigm of waste was the main issue we investigated during the working group 3. And the main concept related to this are, of course, the circular economy, cradle to cradle, and the material as and buildings and material bank. So the major outcomes and the points you can also find in the booklet regarding the future life of the buildings are strategy in order to reduce waste, reuse waste, and think as waste a resource. And the second point is, or are things, thoughts about the measure for the implementation of circular economy thinking, also not only from the point of view of the material, but from the point of view of the entire building. So this was a very short and tough overview of what we deal with in the work group 3. And yes, I will invite everyone to download the publication of our working group on the Restore site. And if you want to have more information about these topics, you can find many of them in this publication. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giulia. Appreciate for sharing your presentation with us. Do we have any questions on the chat box for Giulia? Okay, so I think if we don't have any questions, I think we will proceed with now the lunch break, and we will also show a video from Regenerative building the Bullet Center. So the next presentation will start again at 1:30, and until then you can enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much, Giulia.
Thank you. Bye.